Hello everyone. So I've been saying that I was going to make a more full-length video, and here I am. Here I am to make a longer form video. I've been making a ton of shorts videos, but definitely, I wanted to get another long form video out. So I'm going to be talking, and also I'm going to be eating. I got a little bit of food from McDonald's. So I've normally been posting my food videos on my other new channel that I told you guys about, Just a Guy Eating. But I'm hungry, I want to eat, and I wanted to make a full-length video. So yeah, had kind of a space moment there. So yeah, here I am. Not a lot to report on, honestly. It's the same thing. The main thing is just trying to survive, get money however I can. Yeah, that's the main thing. The main thing is obviously just trying to survive, just making sure my family and I have a roof over our head and food to eat, water to drink. That's funny I say that because I don't have any water with me right now. I didn't bring any water. So at the basic minimum, that's what it is. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know anymore. Ever since we became homeless, life changes when you don't have a home, a real home. A place that's actually yours. Whether I've talked about all this before, and that's one thing. I've discussed a lot of this before, but there's obviously different levels of homelessness, especially different countries you go to. Homelessness, it's a wide range of living conditions. Homelessness in the United States is different than, say, in Mexico or in India or something like that. Because in the United States, there's more resources, there's more government funding, stuff like that. So, pretty much any homeless person in the United States, as long as they kind of have their head on straight, don't do drugs or whatever, you can walk into a government place and get, like food assistance, sometimes cash assistance. We live in a country where you could walk in almost any food business, really virtually any food business, you could get a free water cup. So you can get free water anywhere in the United States. You walk into a McDonald's or a Walmart. Walmart has water fountains. Usually, sometimes they don't work, but so yeah, you can get water if you live in the United States, or if you just happen to be in the United States. Yeah, you can get water virtually anywhere. Sometimes grocery stores, they have water, and like I said, water fountains, or maybe they'll even give you a cup if you really need one. And then, like I said, even if you don't have food, there's government programs, or you could beg, like I have done, and I do. I've literally, when I was, I've literally walked into businesses before, and just be like, hey, I'm hungry. Do you have anything extra? I could have some white rice or some anything. Sometimes people will give you stuff. This is homelessness in the United States. Where essentially, at the bare minimum, if you put in a little bit of effort, you can get food and water or other drinks. Sometimes people will give you, if you're begging, sometimes people will give you energy drinks or soda or juice or whatever. Whereas in other countries, they're very poor, don't have government assistance, or even the people of the country don't have extra money themselves. They're barely getting by, even the ones who do work or whatever. Then so they can't give to the homelessness, and so homelessness in those countries is harder. Maybe you can't get food, and you can't get clean, fresh water and stuff like that, in some other countries. So off the bat, homelessness in the United States is definitely different. I mean, there's programs where you can get a free cell phone in the United States, or someone will give you one. That's another thing. Why we've been begging? We begged for a long time, and people will give you like old cell phones, and at the very least, and there's free Wi-Fi in the United States at a lot of places, libraries and grocery stores, Walmart, Target, Fred Meyer, all these kinds of things. But yeah, we've gotten free cell phones before, and you could just hook them up to Wi-Fi. So at the very least, you could get internet, So homelessness in the United States, again, even if you don't have a home, you can usually get food, water. If you put a little bit more effort in, you could find a cell phone somewhere, a smartphone somewhere, usually even if you have to buy one, you could probably get one for like $50, and which you're like, well, where do I get $50? You could beg for, a few hours or a couple days or whatever, you get $50. Okay. And as far as living, there's different levels of homelessness as far as living too. There's total on the street, no shelter whatsoever homelessness. Say bottom of the barrel, no shelter, not a tent, not a car to sleep in. You're basically looking for a bridge to sleep under, or a big tree, or something like that. That's bottom of the barrel homelessness, right? And then, there slowly steps up from there to where sometimes homeless people do have tents, or they have a car that they can sleep in, or you might have someone that that will let you couch surf for a while, in which technically you're still homeless. Someone's like, oh well, yeah, you could sleep on my couch for a little bit, or you could sleep in my garage, which we've done before too. And so technically you're still homeless. You don't have a home, you don't pay rent, you don't own a house, nothing like that, but someone's allowing you to sleep in their backyard or their garage or on their couch or whatever. So there's different oh, man, that's why I need water. There's different levels of homelessness as far as that, and all the way up towards kind of, and then, there's shelters. Sometimes there's, we did that before too, my family and I. There was a shelter in Utah we stayed in for a while. This was the first time we were homeless, and so you're still technically homeless, but there's a shelter where you could live in, and sometimes those provide food or water, and you can shower and those things. And then, you kind of keep going up, and if you are able to find at least some money, you could maybe rent a cheap hotel or cheap motel, which we do. And plus, I have a car, obviously, so worst comes to worst, could sleep in the car, which is terrible. It's very hard, but it's a shelter of sorts, So anyhow, my point in all this is, so that's where we're still at. We're still technically at the point where we don't have a real home of our own. We live in a really cheap motel that is, cheaper than most apartments or houses, especially houses. It's very expensive to rent an actual house nowadays. And So that's where we're at right now, where we've been for the past couple of years. We found a cheap motel that we could, again, at just the basic level, we have a shelter, we have a shower, we have a sink, we have a toilet, we have a microwave, a bed to sleep in, But it's still not ours. Okay, nothing. Well, not nothing, but the main necessity, the main I don't know what the word is. The main things in that room are not ours. Like the microwave is not ours. The beds are not ours. The shower curtain is not ours. The TV is not ours. And so, that brings you to the reality of it's not your home. We don't own anything. We own, like, I have the clothes on my back and my jacket and shoes. We have our stuff as far as that goes. But like I said, everything in the room, the beds, the dresser, whatever is in the room, it's not ours. We don't own it. None of it's ours. If we left today, that would all stay there, and we would go, and we would just have what we have on our back and our clothes, and my car, and that's it. So this car is technically more of our, because I own the car at least. I don't own the motel. I don't. Yeah. So this is more of our home of sorts that we own. This is the closest thing that I have to owning a home is just my car, which could break down at any day or any moment. You know what I mean? But anyways, and so the everything I just said was a big old roundabout to say basically that we've been homeless a long time, and it's very hard to get out of homelessness. Very hard to get out of homelessness, and your mentality changes completely. Everything is different. Like your perspective on everything, on holidays, on birthdays, on what the word home means. We don't even have, honestly, like my girlfriend and I, we don't even have a concept of what home means anymore. We actually try to even avoid using the word home to refer to the motel because we don't want to consider it as a home. We slip up sometimes and say, go home, but we usually say something like, oh, when we get back to the place or something like that. Because it's not a home. We don't, on top of the fact that we don't own anything in the room, again, the beds, the microwave, TV, any of that stuff. On top of all that, there's certain stuff that it doesn't have. It doesn't have, our fridge is small. So, usually in hotels and motels, the fridge is small. We don't, we've bought the little electric plug-in things to where we could cook, where we can make real meals. We own that. But it, it doesn't have a full stove or an oven. We don't have an oven. Or actually, we bought another electric plug-in oven too. But it's just not a home. It's not a home. It's a shelter where we stay, and that could be torn out from under us at any point too. Like I said, I'm at the point now where. So I'm sure we're at the point is just trying to get a basic level of money to make sure we continue to have that shelter and again food and water and stuff like that. And but the ultimate goal obviously is to get a home. But now the irony has been for the past couple of years, we realized at some point that we really, really, really dislike this town, Quincy, Washington. We never even wanted to come here. This video is going to end up being way too long. It's already almost 15 minutes. We never even wanted to come here. The only reason we came here was for the job that I recently had that I got fired from. We were homeless on the street and begging, and all that kind of stuff. And I was looking for a job really hard and couldn't find anything where we were at. We were in the Tri-Cities area. And I just kept expanding my search area, just looking for anything, and I found this job here in Quincy, Washington. So we're like, oh, well, okay, well, I guess I didn't even know, I never even heard of Quincy or been there or nothing. And so we came up here, and, you know, I got the job, and, you know, we started staying here, you know. But it was never, guy's leaving. I'm actually in front of the grocery store. I was gonna go in and I was gonna go in and upload this video because the internet is better after I was done eating. But yeah, it's not like we researched this place, Quincy, and was like, oh, that's a really nice town, good amenities, this, you know, this and that, and we'd really like to move there. No, there was none of that. We never came to this town because we liked this town or because we wanted to come to this town. We came to this town out of absolute necessity. You know, we didn't want to be homeless anymore. I needed a job, and I came here to work. That's it. Okay. And so now that the rug is pulled out from under our feet as far as that goes, I don't have that job anymore that I had for over 2 years. It's like we're in this weird limbo state where we really do not like this town. We don't want to live here. And, you know, we want to move. We want a home, a real home, whether an apartment or a house. I would really prefer, you know, a house, you know, an actual house. But that feels like a pipe dream. But, you know, we want a home. We want a real home. Again, where we could furnish it with our own stuff. We can, you know, everything in there is ours. The bed, the stove, I don't know, everything, right? And we don't want to live here. And this is the conundrum. And this was the conundrum. Again, at some point during me working, we realized, hey, you know, we don't like this town a lot, and we don't want to stay here. And so it was always an attempt to try to save up money to get out, and the stuff always comes up. Like you guys remember with my car, literally, you know, I was coming out of work one day. I remember when the car finally like broke down the first time. Came out of work, put my key in, went to, you know, turn on the car to go, and the key wouldn't turn. It had been having problems for a while, but finally it just didn't turn at all. And then from there, for months I didn't have a car, just trying to save up money to pay for that, and then end up having to buy the part, and it was just this and that. It was just so expensive, and it took months, and it just always something came up. And then it was like, oh, I need new tires. It was $500 for all 4 of the tires on this car, and, you know, other bills or other things come up, and, you know, whatever. And so we were never able to save up enough, not just to get a place, but to move out of here. It's two different costs. It costs 1 point to get a place. You got to have however much, because when you go to a place, you got to not just pay the rent. First of all, you got to pay the stupid application fees, which, oh my God, don't even get me started on that. It makes me so mad. This is one reason why it's so hard to get out of homelessness in the United States, is because it's so ridiculous, and there's so much nonsense, so many hoops you got to jump through just to get a place. So first of all, you got to fill out an application fee, and you have to you have to fill out an application, and there's usually application fee, and they charge you per adult person that's going to live there. And so both me and my girlfriend would have to fill out an application and pay the fee for each one. And each of those application fees could be $20, $30, $50. You know, the price varies, right? And the dumbest thing is you fill out, you know, you're what's the word? You're reluctant because you're like, okay, well, we could pay the fee, fill out the application, turn in, and then they deny you, and that money's just gone. You don't get a refund. That's how fucked up the fucking system is. You don't get a refund. That money's just gone. So say it's just cheap. Say it's like $25 per person. for 2 people. That's $50. But that's $50 gone. Then you go to another place and you apply, and then you get denied again. That's another $50. Now you're down $100 for nothing, for nothing. That's just the very, very tip. And then even if you do get approved, now it's like, okay, well, you got to pay the first month's rent, and then they have another thing they call what do they call that? There's the first month's rent, and I forget what the other fee is called, but basically it's equivalent to another month's rent usually. Sometimes it's a little bit less, but it's usually. So let's just say rent is $1,000, which that's not even. It's like almost impossible to find a place to rent for $1,000 anymore. But let's just say it's $1,000, which is cheap, right? So you got to pay the $1,000 for the first month's rent, and then another $1,000 for the fee. So that's $2,000 right away up front that you got to pay, plus the stupid application fees, maybe a couple hundred, because if you applied for a few places, because what if you don't get on the first place, or what if you don't get on the second place, or it might take you a few times, so that's over $2,000 right there, just to move into a place. Literally, I mean, this is that $2,000 figure is a bare minimum, because like I said, you're not even just in Washington State, pretty much anywhere in the United States. I mean, maybe somewhere in Mississippi or Alabama you could find cheap rent for $1,000, or maybe cheaper than that, but and at least anywhere on the coast here and on the West Coast, $1,000 rent is pretty much unheard of, right? So yeah, it could be $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 a month for rent. Again, depending if it's an apartment or a house or whatever. And again, so you have to pay to that. If the rent is $1,500 a month, you got to pay the initial $1,500, and plus the other, basically another $1,500 for whatever, the security deposit. That's what they call it, a security deposit. So you pay the $1,500 a month, first month's rent, and then another $1,500 for security deposit. So now you're out $3,000 already just to move in. And then remember, for us, we're homeless. So we move into a place, we have nothing. We don't have a microwave. We don't have a refrigerator. We don't have furniture. We don't have beds. So now probably at least another $1,000 that we would have to spend, my family, because we don't have nothing. And so say at least $2,000 to $3,000. No, it's at least like $3,000. Say to get into a place, and then another $1,000 or so to furnish the place, just with basic, just like I said, just a couple beds and a fridge if it doesn't have a fridge, and a table, a chair, or something, right? At least another $1,000, right? And that's all just to get a place and move in a place. But now, like I said, if you're talking about moving in, because we don't want to live in Quincy, right? Then you're talking about travel fee. And that, I'm telling you, for anyone out there who's thinking about moving far from wherever you live, the cost, how do I say this? The price of moving increases directly. It's directly proportional to how far you go. So the further you move away from where you are, the more expensive it is, okay? So if you want to go right down the street, okay, maybe it costs you nothing. But if you want to go, say, 10 miles from where you live, okay, well, it's gas, you got to pay gas, especially gas is crazy right now, right? It's crazy expensive. And then if you got to rent a moving truck, okay, well, you have to rent the moving truck for an hour, a couple hours, or whatever. Okay, but you go further out, say you want to move 100 miles away. Okay, now you rent the moving truck for a day or two, and then gas in the moving truck, which is really going to be ridiculous. And so it's double. So not, because we don't want to live here, there's no point in us getting a place in a city in which we're going to be miserable. We've discussed all this, my girlfriend and I. There's no point of us getting a place here. We came to a realization at some point along being here that we don't want to live here, and if we just force ourselves to live here, we're going to be miserable. And so we want to get out of here. And since we don't want to be here, we want to move somewhere not here. That's another way higher cost, I want to say, than just moving in. Like I said, it would cost a few $1,000s just to move into a place anywhere, and then another God knows how much for the, moving to, again, for a moving truck, for gas to get there, and and all this stuff. And literally, the further you go, the more expensive it is, because it's more gas, and you got to rent the truck for longer if you have to rent a moving truck, and this and that. If you got to rent a truck for a day, that's one cost. You got to rent a truck for 2 days, well, that's double the cost. You got to rent a truck for 3 days, that's 3 times the cost. So literally, the further you move, the more expensive it is. So that's where we're at. So this all roundabout, what is this, 25 minutes of roundabout talking is, homelessness sucks, okay? Homelessness sucks. There's varying levels of homelessness, from, again, down to just you have absolutely nothing, nowhere to sleep, no shelter, no tent, no car, no nothing, right? Which is very horrible, right? And then there's steps up from that to where, okay, maybe you have a tent, or maybe you have a car, or maybe you have you live in a shelter, like a homeless shelter, or like us, maybe you are able to get enough money to get a cheap hotel or motel, or you couch surf on your friend or your family members, whatever, couch or in their backyard, and you sleep in their doghouse, or whatever you do, So there's there's levels of homelessness, and yeah. So that's where we're at. So that's where we're at. We're like, if we're talking about these levels of homelessness, we're kind of at the, we're at the point where we have, a consistent shelter, but it's still not a home. We're like right at that point, right before having a home, but getting to that point, we're actually into a home. The price difference is literally thousands. That's not an exaggeration. Like I said, it's so ridiculously hard to get into a place with all the applications and the fees, and then the credit checks, and then you have to have a certain amount of monthly income. It's not like say a place for rent is $1,000. For anyone who hasn't rented a place in a long time, or you've never rented a place, and again, say the rent is $1,000 and you have $1,000 in cash, you can't just go to the renter and be like, oh, here you go, here's $1,000, I want to move in. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Even if you have $2,000 or $5,000, they're still like, okay, well, you got to fill out the application and pay the fee, and you might get approved, you might not. They want that you have to earn a certain amount of income. Like if the place for rent is $1,000, they're like, oh, you have to earn 3 times the rent. So you have to earn, in order to get $1,000 place, you have to earn at least $3,000 just to move in. And you might be like, well, I don't earn $3,000. Maybe you earn $2,500, or maybe you earn $2,800, or some nonsense like that. And again, $1,000 is almost a pipe dream in itself. Finding a place for $1,000 that's almost a joke in itself right there. So yeah, so it's not easy, and I'm not trying to complain. I'm just stating the reality of the situation. It's not easy getting out of homelessness. It's not easy getting out of homelessness, and it makes it more difficult and more expensive when you want to get out of homelessness, but you're in a town that you don't want to be in. This guy actually came back, so I'm gonna end this video. So that's it. This video is almost 30 minutes long. I'm gonna go. It's a lot of rambling, but this is the situation. We want a home. We don't want to be in Quincy. In order to achieve all that, you got to earn money, and a lot of money. I worked for over 2 years, working from 40 to 60 hours a week, and it just wasn't enough. Everything is so expensive, and things always come up. Car breaks down, or always something comes up. And so it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to get out of, and that's where we're at, and that's what we're trying to do. That's it. All right. Man, this is gonna take so long to upload. I don't have good internet to upload this video. Even at the grocery store, it's not even that great. If I could go to Walmart, but Walmart's far away. All right. Well, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.